All right, let's dive into NMN today. We've got some really interesting stuff to unpack, a scientific study from Nature and a review article on NAD++.
Should be a good one.
Yeah, some pretty mind-boggling findings, potentially. We're going to be talking about what NMN is, how it might affect us, and some pretty fascinating research around things like Alzheimer's and fertility.
And what's really cool is that these sources, they go deep. The Nature study focuses on some really specific stuff, and then the review article helps us kind of zoom out and see how it all connects to the bigger picture of human health.
So first things first, what exactly is NMN?
So NMN stands for Nicotinamide Mononucleotide. It's a molecule, and it's found naturally in our bodies.
Okay.
And in some foods, too, in small amounts. But the thing is, it's a precursor to NAD plus HAV, and that's a coenzyme that's absolutely essential for hundreds of processes in our cells. Keeps them functioning right.
So it's like NMN is what our bodies use to make this NAD plus stuff,
Yeah.
which is super important.
Exactly, you got it. And here's where it gets interesting, right? NAD plus levels, they naturally decrease as we age. And scientists think this decline, well, it's linked to a lot of those age-related health issues.
Oh, I see.
So researchers are super excited about the idea of using NMN to boost NAD plus levels, maybe even slow down or reverse some of these age-related problems.
That's why this is such a hot topic, huh? You mentioned Alzheimer's earlier. What did the Nature study find about NMN there?
So this study, it really digs deep into how NMN affects the way our cells respond to stress, specifically in the mitochondria.
Ah, the mitochondria, the powerhouses of the cell, right. I remember that from biology class.
Exactly. And they're thought to be really affected in Alzheimer's disease. The study found that NMN helped to improve the way those mitochondria respond to stress in models of the disease.
So it's like NMN is helping these little powerhouses cope better, basically. But how does that actually affect someone with Alzheimer's? What's the connection there?
Okay, so the researchers saw something really promising. They found that NMN seemed to protect neurons and synapses in the brain, and those are crucial for memory and learning, as you know.
Yes, for sure.
And get this, it seems to do this by activating this pathway in the cells called the ATF4 pathway.
The ATF4 pathway.
It's a little technical, but basically this pathway helps cells deal with the buildup of harmful proteins, what's called proteotoxicity, and that's a major issue in Alzheimer's.
So NMN is basically stepping in and helping to clear out the junk, keeping things running smoothly.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
That's pretty amazing. But this was all in the lab, right?
Right. Important to note that this was preclinical research, so in cells and animal models. We need more research to know if these effects will be the same in humans. But, the findings are really encouraging, and they open up some exciting avenues for more research.
It sounds like there's a lot of potential there. And, speaking of potential, the review article mentioned NMN being studied in relation to fertility.
Absolutely. That's another area where research is getting a lot of attention. The article highlighted studies looking at how NMN affects male reproductive function, particularly in cases where there's been damage from radiation.
Which can be a side effect of cancer treatments, right?
Exactly. Really important point.
So how does NMN seem to help in those cases?
Well, there was a study that looked at mice exposed to radiation.
Yeah.
And the researchers, they found that giving these mice NMN supplements seemed to actually protect their reproductive function.
Interesting.
The idea is that the NMN was boosting NAD plus levels in the testes, and then that helped the cells repair and regenerate. They even saw improvements in sperm count, motility, and even testicular volume.
Wow. So it seems like, again, NMN is supporting these really crucial cellular processes, this time related to, reproductive health. It's really interesting how one molecule seems to have such a diverse range of potential benefits.
Right.
And this is especially relevant because
it makes you think about aging differently, right? Like, what if instead of just accepting that decline is going to happen, we could find ways to actively support our body's natural processes?
Yeah.
NMN seems like a pretty promising candidate for that.
I'm already starting to see things a little differently. Now, we can't talk about NMN without mentioning Rev Genetics. They've been supplying NMN to researchers in universities since 2016. So they're kind of ahead of the curve on this whole NMN thing.
For sure. It really shows how much scientific interest there is in NMN and what it could do.
Okay, so we've covered what NMN is, how it might work, and two key areas where it's showing some real promise. It's a lot to take in, but I'm already wanting to learn more. What else should we be thinking about with NMN research?
Well, one thing that's really striking is that NMN isn't some foreign substance. It's something our bodies already use. So supplementing with NMN is almost like we're amplifying our own natural healing and regenerative powers.
That's a good point.
But that's just the beginning.
There's more. Okay, I can't wait to hear what other fascinating insights this research has in store for us.
Welcome back. Before we go any further with the research, I wanted to circle back to something you said earlier about NMN being a natural molecule. The fact that our bodies actually make it.
Yeah, it definitely seems important. It's not like taking some synthetic drug or something.
Exactly. That's one of the things that makes NMN so interesting. It's like we're tapping into, our own natural mechanisms for health and longevity. And the more we learn about how that works, the more possibilities open up.
So you're saying there's even more to this NMN story than what we've talked about already?
There is. Remember how we talked about NAD plus and how it's involved in all these cellular processes? Hundreds of them.
Right, like it's the ultimate multitasker in our cells, keeping everything running smoothly.
Exactly. And because NMN is so good at boosting NAD plus levels, researchers are now looking into whether it could have benefits beyond just what we talked about. Alzheimer's, fertility, but there could be so much more.
Okay, now you've really got me intrigued. What other areas are they looking at? What's showing promise?
Well, preclinical studies have shown some pretty interesting results in areas like metabolic health, cardiovascular function, even DNA repair.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying that NMN could potentially help with things like maintaining a healthy weight, keeping our hearts healthy, and even like slowing down the aging process at the cellular level?
It is, but, and this is a big but, it's important to remember that these are still preclinical findings, right? We're talking cells and animal models. We need more research to confirm these benefits in humans, but the early evidence is definitely compelling.
It really makes you think differently about aging. Like maybe instead of just accepting that decline is inevitable, we can actually do something to stay healthy and vital for longer.
It's a really empowering way to think about it, for sure. And I think that's driving a lot of the excitement around NMN research. People are starting to see that we might have more control over how we age than we thought.
This is all so fascinating. But I gotta be honest, I feel like I'm only scratching the surface here. You mentioned earlier the nature study and something about the ATF4 pathway. I remember thinking, that sounds important, but I have no idea what that means.
Of course. It is a bit technical, but I think I can explain it in a way that makes sense. So remember how we talked about NMN improving the way mitochondria respond to stress?
Yeah.
Well, the ATF4 pathway is really important in that process. Think of it like a cellular alarm system. When things start going wrong inside the mitochondria, it gets activated.
Okay, so too much stress in the mitochondria sets off the alarm bells, and ATF4 swoops in to save the day.
Pretty much. ATF4 is a protein that helps cells deal with stress, especially stress that can damage proteins. And what the researchers found was that NMN seems to boost the activity of that ATF4 pathway, making the cell's stress response even better.
So it's like NMN is giving the cell's natural defense system a power-up.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons researchers are so excited about NMN. It's not just covering up the symptoms of aging. It seems to be actually helping cells stay healthy and function properly.
It's really cool to hear about all this cutting-edge science, but I'm also curious about the practical stuff. Like, how are people actually using NMN today?
That's a great question. We talked about how Rev Genetics has been providing NMN to researchers for years.
Right.
Well, now that research is starting to make its way to consumers,
So people can actually buy NMN supplements.
they can. And more people are starting to include NMN in their health routines. Of course, like with any supplement, it's super important to do your research. Find a good brand, talk to your doctor, and make sure it's right for you.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
I feel like people can get caught up in the hype sometimes. They want to try the latest health trend without really understanding it.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to have access to reliable information, right? To be able to separate the hype from the actual facts and make informed decisions about our health.
I totally agree. It's about empowering ourselves with knowledge so we can really take control of our own well-being.
Exactly. And that's one of the most exciting things about this NMN research. It's giving us a glimpse into a future where we might have more options for living longer, healthier lives.
A future I'm definitely excited about. As we've been talking, I keep thinking back to this idea of NMN working with our body's own natural potential for healing and regeneration. It's a really powerful concept.
It is. It shows how interconnected everything is in our bodies and how complex life really is.
I'm curious, are there other areas where NMN is showing potential we haven't talked about yet? We were just talking about how much potential NMN has. It's pretty incredible. But I think a lot of people listening are probably wondering, okay, this all sounds promising, but is there really solid evidence to back it up?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. A lot of what we've talked about so far has been preclinical research, but there are more and more human studies being done to really figure out how NMN affects us.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. So what kind of trials are they doing? What are they hoping to find out?
Well, there are several trials that are focused on metabolic health. They're exploring whether NMN can improve insulin sensitivity, which is really important for keeping our blood sugar levels healthy. And then there are others that are looking at cardiovascular health, seeing if NMN can improve things like blood flow, reduce blood pressure, maybe even protect against heart damage.
So they're taking those preclinical findings and actually testing them out in people. That's great.
Yeah.
What about those potential benefits we talked about before, like for Alzheimer's and fertility? Are there human studies for those too?
Yep. There are actually trials going on right now to see if NMN can slow down cognitive decline in people with mild cognitive impairment or early Alzheimer's. And researchers are also looking at whether NMN can improve sperm quality and basically support healthy aging in the reproductive system.
It's amazing to think about all the different possibilities. Makes you wonder, are there any downsides to taking NMN?
That's a really important question. So far, based on the research, NMN seems to be pretty well tolerated at the doses that have been studied. But like any supplement, it's really important to talk to your doctor before taking it, especially if you have any health conditions or are taking other medications.
Makes sense. It's always better to be safe and get advice from a professional. Overall, though, it sounds like NMN could really change how we think about aging and health.
I think so too. We're still learning about all of its benefits and how we can use it, but the research is moving
It's
fast.
definitely something to keep an eye on, and it's a great reminder that there's always more to learn, always new possibilities to explore.
I couldn't agree more. It's that curiosity that drives scientific progress and leads to those aha moments that can change our lives.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
Well, I think the most important thing is that NMN might be a game changer in how we approach aging. It suggests that maybe instead of just accepting decline, we have the potential to really support our bodies and extend our health span, maybe even redefine what it means to age gracefully.
That's an incredible thought to end on. Thanks so much for being here today and sharing your expertise.
My pleasure. I always enjoy these conversations.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining us on this journey of discovery. We hope this deep dive sparked your curiosity and inspired you to keep exploring the world of knowledge and possibilities. Remember, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to our own health and well-being.